Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage we're going to have another top 5. The top 5 running costs of an XK8 or XKR. I'm very often asked by people who are interested in XK8s and XKRs, but what are the running costs like? Surely it's a very expensive car to run. And it's not a simple question to answer because the running costs for me are altered by the fact I do my own servicing. They're altered by my age, by where I live, by how I drive, and also by the condition of my car. That said, I think there are some things which are the obvious running costs of a car like this. Now, I'm not going to talk about things that might break, even though some things that might break are pretty sure they're going to break. I'm talking about consumables, overheads, the things that will happen to you. There are 3 things I've definitely not included in my top 5, despite being for some people very significant costs. And I'm going to get them out of the way straight away. The first and the biggest running cost for anybody with one of these, and particularly if you live in the UK, is fuel. It's July 2022 and in the UK you're looking at about £8.45 for a gallon of petrol. So if you're in the UK and you do about 10,000 miles a year, then based on realistic assumptions about fuel economy and the current fuel prices, then you're going to spend about £3,500 just in fuel on this vehicle. If you're a light user, then 5,000, then you're talking £2,000, something like that, in fuel. The second one that I'm not including in my top 5 because too personal, too variable, is insurance. Every year you have to insure this. For me, it's not one of the front runners. It costs me less than £200 per year to insure Purdy, fully comp with an unlimited mileage, and that's for myself and my wife. And I know that's a good deal, but it's a classic insurance and it's related to me being a mature gentleman, 54, with a very good driving record, living in a very low crime area. And finally, again, very UK specific, so not really relevant for this top 5, is we pay car tax every year. And this is a road fund license, or at least it used to be called that. In some countries you pay by the mile or you have lots of toll roads. We pay a once per year tax for each vehicle, and for this vehicle that would be £295. So for our top 5, I've assumed a 3-year loop because that incorporates all sorts of things that we do every 2 or 3 years to give an overview of the costs. In number 5 is a coolant swap. Cars should have their coolant changed quite regularly. The XK8 and XKR have long life coolant that could go 5 or 6 years, but inevitably some of us will have some work done on our vehicles. It means letting out the coolant, and if you're going to replace it, you need to replace it with the right coolant. Do not just put water in these. You are just asking for all sorts of trouble. You want to put in the right mix. And it's a type of coolant called OAT, O-A-T, and it's typically orange to pink in colour. And for a full coolant replacement, you're going to need 10 litres of it. It's about 9.5 litres to fill a system on an XK8 XKR, and that's going to cost you about £60. Number 2 is at this end of the car: batteries. The XK8 and XKR are extraordinarily sensitive to poor quality, damaged or degrading batteries. Batteries for these cars should be changed once every 5 years, regardless of guarantees on batteries, because as soon as they lose a little bit of their a little bit of their resilience. The voltages that they send to the system are not quite what they used to be, and it triggers sensors. Many faults are down to poor quality batteries. Added to the fact they're a heavy user of the battery, and a lot of our cars are not daily drivers and are stored up and standing for a long period of time. There are also some known drains and issues which cause batteries to be damaged over time, including the intelligent sounders and alarm systems, which are now past their sell-by date and causing excess drain on our cars. In my experience, my batteries are lasting about 3 years, and I always buy really good quality batteries, people like Yuasa, for instance. So in any 3-year period, you should expect to be spending £150, maybe a little more, on a good quality battery to keep your XK8 healthy. We're back up the business end for number 3. The third biggest running cost for these vehicles is pure and simple the servicing, fluids and filter. Even though your car maybe doesn't go that far, it still should have an oil change every 12 months. Oil degrades over time, it absorbs moisture, irregular startups put more strain on the oil because it gets contaminated more, condensation gets in there. So regardless of use, you are looking at, in a 3-year period, 3 oil changes, 3 filter changes and 3 air filter changes as a minimum. These cars take 7.4 litres of oil. That oil needs to be of good quality, particularly if, like me, you have a Nickel lined engine that has not been sleeved. You want to protect that fantastic piece of engineering. So good quality oil, you're looking at around £80 for the oil. Oil filters are quite cheap. They are only about £10, and air filters a little more than that. You're looking at £100, £120 every year for oil and filter changes. And that assumes that you're doing the work yourself. So over our 3-year period, you're looking at something that's about £360. The number 2 cost in a 3-year period is brakes. The national average for mileage in the UK is 12,000 miles, and it is coming down. These cars are more likely to be high days and holidays cars than most, but for the purposes of this session, I've assumed a 10,000 mile car. You can make your own adjustments for your own mileages. Within 3 years, you'll have done 30,000 miles, and that is beyond the life expectancy of a set of pads and discs. And if you drive your car in a spirited fashion, then you could get through a set of pads in about 12,000 miles. The discs, again, varies dependent on use, but certainly within 30,000 miles, you are going to need to change them. Pads on these cars are not extravagantly expensive, but there is a handbrake shoe which rarely gets changed. Lots of the cars have upgraded brakes, as does mine, and some of the cars have Brembo brakes. And I don't just mean the brand, I mean the larger Brembo braking set that is on a lot of the XKRs and some XK8s. That Brembo set changes the cost considerably. My car has standard sized brakes, it's on an XK8. I have EBC brake pads and discs all round, which has increased the cost marginally. To do a complete swap for me every 3 years on this car and replace them all with EBC mildly upgraded kit would cost me around £600. If the car was still stock and I was replacing the discs with decent quality pattern parts, then that price would come down to around £350 to £400. If this was an XKR wearing the full Brembo setup, then a full set could easily cost you £800 and up. And remember, that's just for the parts. That's assuming I'm fitting them. And depending where you are in the world, whether you use a friend who's got a garage, whether you use a Jaguar independent, or you have to use a Jaguar main dealer, that's going to vary dramatically. So insert some labour costs on top of that. And what's the number one running cost for these vehicles over a 3-year period? Tyres. Like all cars, they use tyres. And if you can get 30,000 miles out of a set of XK8 or XKR tyres, you're doing exceptionally well. So I would say, when I'm about to quote you, you need to think even higher potentially. Because of the performance of this vehicle, it's quite possible that you will get through a set of tyres in 15,000 miles. They're not heavy on their tyres in terms of scrubbing, wearing away inside edges because of really unusual toe-ins or cambers, etc. They are just a really heavy, powerful, torquey car which has prodigious levels of grip and therefore is able to really use this rubber to the max. And so they wear pretty evenly, but 15 to 25,000 I would say is as much as you dare hope you're going to get out of them. Also, tyres age, and if you park your car outdoors, and particularly if you're in a hot dry climate, then tyres decay, and 3 years is well beyond what desert environments will allow these things to live before they start to crack and break up. My recommendation would be, don't let your tyres go more than 3 years if the car's in use. Check them for wear regularly and buy decent rubber. Don't be tempted to go for tyres which have not got the right speed or load ratings, because it's not just lip service. This is a heavy car capable of exerting extraordinary force on its tyres, and you don't want them to let go. The tyres are 245 45 18 front and 255 45 18 on the rear of my car, and the majority of Jag XK8s do have that staggered tyre set, and it can be difficult to get a full set of tyres in a matching style in those sizes. Some cars will be converted to standard sizes front and rear despite having different width wheels front and rear, so be aware that you may be running on the wrong tyre set. Getting it right limits to some extent the types of tyre that you can go for. The correct tyre from new was the Pirelli P0, which I love. Some don't. I believe Dunlop, their Pilot Sport range, is also quite a popular tyre. And I believe you can get Toyos that fit in the right sizes for these. But because you're limited, you're also asked to pay a premium. A full set of P0s in the correct spec for this car, if you shop around and you're lucky, you're going to get them in the UK for about £800, £850. If your car's wearing larger wheels, then that starts to go up even further. So in my opinion, the right tyres are going to cost you £800 to £1,000 every 3 years. You could opt for cheaper tyres, and my car does have 2 front tyres at the moment which are cheaper, not the right brands that I would like. They will be being changed to Pirelli P0s quite soon, despite being in good nick. If you've put a full set of cheaper tyres on it, you could probably get away with something like £600. So what do I get if I add all that up? For me, it comes to £3,500 for 3 years, including my tax and insurance, but excluding fuel. So That's about £1,200 in running costs, assuming that nothing goes wrong. And that also assumes I'm doing the work myself. If you're having the car regularly serviced by a Jaguar dealer, then I would say you've got to add on another couple of £100 minimum every year, probably more like £400 every year. So it's significantly more expensive to run this than it is to run a Ford Fiesta, obviously. What this car is not is significantly more expensive to run than anything which is a little bit fun, regardless of being new or old. I've not included costs for welding and repairs because I've got to assume that you're dealing with that separately. Nobody can say that all cars are equal, but that gives you an indication of the standard running costs for a nice XK8 or XKR if you can do some spannering yourself. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please subscribe, please click the bell icon. It really helps the channel. It costs you nothing and we don't charge for any of these videos ever. See you soon.